Hey everybody, thank you for joining me again. This is Jasmine. I know I've been away for about a month on my channel. I've been going through a lot of stuff emotionally still up until, excuse me, this last weekend, this past Sunday. Today is Thursday. With a relationship, the romantic relationship that I was in the past, 10, 11 months. I had to lay down some boundaries and do something that I had to do to make myself feel safe again. And, nothing terrible happened or anything. It's just learning to choose yourself again above all else, learning to put yourself first and your needs and your need for stability. And I wanted to share a little bit about that. So, there's a reason why I'm not on camera. I'm not feeling it today. So, just let y'all know. So I'm just going to briefly go through, a little bit about what I've been going through, just in case somebody can relate to this. So, excuse me, throat chakra stuff. I've been going through ups and downs with this relationship since the honeymoon, the quote unquote honeymoon phase ended. As most people know, that's probably like the first 3 months or so roughly in a relationship. And that's when things started happening. We had our first couple fights or arguments. Nothing horrible, we're both very passionate people and we love very deeply, and we're emotional people. So, it was literally us, our shadows coming up and being mirrored to each other to be dealt with, in the relationship. And that's what it was. So we worked through a lot of that. And then there was things with my daughter, confronting him and saying some not so nice things. And so there were some shadows of hers that were included in all that. And it's always for our highest growth. And I've learned this through experience, why we go through difficult conflicts and situations like that in relationships. It's always for everybody's growth, whether they choose to use it to grow or not, or stay stuck in their patterns. And I've tried to educate my daughter on this, and I'm doing the best I can there, and I do believe I'm helping her. I've got her, she's still in counseling weekly, and I was going to counseling for a while, and so I've been working through my stuff too, doing a lot of introspection, journaling, even video logging, instead of, I'm not a big writer, so I'm more of a typist, so I don't like handwriting things. It gives me hand cramps, and I just don't have patience for it. So I'm a fast typer, so I like to type my thoughts out, and I channel messages that way too. And I may bring some of that through if I feel guided to, in upcoming videos on my channel. It's becoming less of a podcast style, like having guests on, and more of a sharing my truths and my journey with you guys, and my growth, and sharing the knowledge that I'm learning as I go to help others in their journey. So that's kind of why I'm feeling guided to go at this point. But getting back to the story, I basically, I was learning that I had allowed this person, this romantic, my ex-boyfriend, to be in a place in my life where it was a little bit above me. And I didn't realize it until introspecting and thinking after, I had to lay boundaries down and walk away. It was not as bad as previous relationships, so that shows improvement. So I am growing there. I did have to be honest with myself. Yes, I did, allow this person to go a little bit on a pedestal above me, but not as bad as the previous person, that I'm still in no contact with for, a year and a half. So, and I love both of them very much, I still do to this day, love them very much with all my heart. But you got to do what's best for you. And that's what I had to do. I just came off this month-long, so-called no contact break with my ex-boyfriend that he needed to take. He was being, pushed by his, guidance counselors to do that. And he did what was best for him. And I'm all for that. I'm not going to be mad at somebody for trying to better themselves, because ultimately that's going to make you have a better relationship with them too. But I love that person. I want them to have regardless of what happens to us, I want them to be a better person. And I'm always encouraging people to do that despite what happens to us in relationships. But I went along with it. And, we might have contacted each other like 4 times, or saw each other a couple times during that month-long break. But there was probably like 2 weeks the first time, we didn't talk. And that's the longest we've gone since we met each other, of not talking or seeing each other. And then there was like 10 days or something like that after that. So, I felt very, I don't want to say insecure, but I kind of was sort of feeling insecure in the relationship, if that's probably the best way to put it, because I didn't know where we stood at the end of the month, and I wanted to have a heart-to-heart, when it ended, the day that it ended on Sunday, this past Sunday. Today's Thursday, and I was like, look, I need to find out, where are we at? Where are the boundaries? And what are the expectations now after this has happened? Like, where are you at? And I was asking, where are you at? And this is what I need. What do you need? What do I need? And he did not know what he wanted at that point. And I said, okay, I respect that. I get that. I know you have a lot going on in your personal life right now, and you business wise, when you're trying to grow things. I get that, and I respect that. But my needs weren't being met, and my sense of security was not there in the relationship anymore. But I still respected him doing what was best for him. And so I was like, okay, well, since you don't know what you want, is there any, are you looking at being open to date others? Because I told him that when he took the break from me, the 30-day no contact, I said, well, I'm going to, if you're going to do this, I'm going to keep my heart open. I'm not going to go out looking for somebody else to date, but I don't want you thinking that I'm not open to opportunities, because that's not fair to me to ask me to wait for you and hold myself just for you when I don't know what you're doing. There was no, he told me he wasn't looking for another relationship. He wasn't wanting a date, but a lot of people say that. And so I was doing that to protect myself, to give myself a little bit of sense of security. And so he, I guess, got a little upset at that, and he kind of brought that up when we talked about it, when he came back after the break, and he's like, well, you said this. So, I'm not looking for love either. I'm not ready to date anybody. I don't want to date anybody, and my counselor says I don't need to focus on that for now. I need to focus on myself, which I agreed with. He said, but, it's like what you said. You said this, so I guess I'm doing the same. I'm not looking for it, but who knows what God may happen. I said, okay, now I know where you stand. All right. So, we hugged, whatever, said goodbye. I was seeking my guidance, my spiritual guidance. Sat back down on the couch and kind of meditated on it, cried a few minutes, prayed about it, and I asked for guidance. I'm like, I don't feel right with this, the way things were left. I feel like I need to lay boundaries because I no longer feel safe in this relationship. And I did something I had to do. And I called him up after, 10, 15 minutes after he left. And I was like, look, when you figure out what you want, and what you want is me and only me, let me know. And he said, okay, I understand and I respect that, which was a very mature response. He said, but can we still remain friends and talk? And I said, no, because I'm going to tell y'all something. I should have mentioned this before. I mentioned that part. While I was meditating after he left, I received clear guidance from my guys that it was like a boom in my head, like your friend's sitting right there and she leans in and tells you, do not do this, is what was like that in my head. And it was clear as day, not mine. It said, do not give him any access to you if he is not 100% or fully committed to you. And I went, okay, that was my guidance. That was what I needed. And I called him up, and that's when I told him, hey, when you find out what you want, and what you want is me and only me, let me know. And he said, I understand, respect that. Can we remain friends? And I said, no. And he said, okay. And I could tell by his tone he was a little disappointed. He said, I understand and I respect that too. I said, okay, I appreciate it. I said, because it's not just anybody that gets access to me. I said, you should know that. I don't allow just anybody in my life to take my energy, my love, my affection. And, if you're not willing to reciprocate that, I can't give that. And he's like, I understand. I said, okay, when you figure it out, let me know. And then that was it. I hung up the phone. And I had an afterthought the next morning, Monday morning, and I texted him. I said, also, when you're ready to let go of all the women in your life that are not in your family, your quote unquote girlfriends, he wasn't dating other people. I mean, at least not that I know of, but he had a ton of women friends. Some of them were exes, some of them weren't. And I told him I did tell him recently I had a problem with that. I did say something in the beginning that I didn't like that either. But I kind of wanted to see how it would evolve and if something like that would change. And, because he was laying this boundary, I was like, I don't see any change there, so I'm going to lay that boundary too. And so I said, also, when you're ready to only commit to me and remove all those women, so-called friends out of your life, then, let me know. In addition to what I said before. And he didn't respond on that until like the next night. And he put a sad emoji, whatever, responded, a crying emoji. And I didn't respond. I let it go because I'm going to move on with my life. I'm going to find what makes me happy. I'm going to work on myself some more, prepare myself for a better, relationship, whether it's with him or somebody else. May the best man win. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I know I've got work to do and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to remain hopeful, keep my heart open and heal. Just like I did from the last one and the one before that. So I just wanted to share that with some people and, hope that this encourages you to follow your heart, do what's best for you. Always choose yourself first. Always choose yourself. Don't put somebody more important than you in a relationship where you're dropping whatever you're doing to answer the phone every time they call or text. Continue doing what you're doing. Let them wait. Put them in the proper place in their life. And that's something that I had to learn again through this. Not that I did it as bad as I did before, but I was kind of getting there. And I see things that I need to grow from and apply in the next relationship. So I just wanted to share that. I hope that helps some people out there. If you're going through something or you're thinking about going through a breakup, because you got ups and downs in your relationship, it's unstable emotionally, choose yourself. Always choose yourself. I can't tell you how much it's changed my life. Yes, it's difficult when, I come from a codependent background. I was a people pleaser. I was a very codependent person in my past. And yes, I'm still healing from that. Each relationship I get stronger and I learn more of those boundaries and I'm still learning. But don't put people more important than yourself. Always choose yourself. And choose your stability and choose love for yourself above all else. So I hope this helps some people out there. Love yourself. I leave you guys in love and light and take care.